Hi, I'm Joel Ort, and today we have a project for you. We're going to take this old 3-point post hole digger, and I'm going to wind up converting this to a hydraulic drive skid steer front mount post hole digger. So the next step in this project is taking the skid steer adapter plate and adding some strength to it. They're a little bit flimsy on the bottom when you get them. So I'm going to use 2 pieces of pipe, weld one on the bottom, one up here towards the top. They'll add stability to this plate and also allow me to see through if I need to when I'm using the post hole digger. So what I'm doing right now is taking measurements to make the 2 pieces to hang the gearbox off, and I'll transfer those to a piece of 1/2-inch plate, and we will use that plasma cutter to cut those out. So this is what I'm going to call the main pivot bracket. I've got everything cut out, put together, and I'm going to take and weld this up, and then after that we'll make a smaller pivot bracket that will slide inside of here. Okay, so I centered this, this main pivot where I wanted it on the bracket, and then what I did was we marked where the circles were going to be cut out, so I could drop this down over these 2 tubes, and then I can weld to the tubes for support. Okay, so we have the quick attach plate now all finished, along with the bracketry that we built for the post hole digger. We got the tubes, the main beams here that'll come out, and there's 2 holes in here that will line up with this secondary pivot point. This is a piece here will slide in. We're going to run this pin through, and I'll wind up welding it on both sides of here, and this bracket will pivot on this main bracket, and then the gear head itself will pivot inside of here. Okay. This is the heart and soul of our post hole digger, is the gearbox. One thing you want to keep in mind before you do this project is that the gearbox you have is able to operate in both directions when you're going to be hooking it up for the skid steer operation. The other is you have to keep in mind is that this was a 540 PTO gearbox, and now we're going to mount this hydraulic motor and coupler off of the end here where the original PTO shaft came in. That's adding a lot of weight that's hanging out here. So when we go to hang this gearbox, it's going to want to, pull the gear. The weight of that's going to pull it down. It won't be straight. So in order to solve for that, I was going to hang a counterweight off the opposite side. One thing I did find with this gearbox, it has a cover here, and this is where I wanted to mount a bar similar to this, and then hang a heavy weight off that bar, or weld the weight to it. But with this original plate, I can't do that. The plate's too thin, it's old, it's worn. So what I did was I took the plate off, laid it over the top of a piece of 1/4-inch steel, and made a thicker, more robust plate. Matched the holes that were in it to match up to the gearbox. And then the gasket that was there, that was pretty much shot and gone. So what I did was I have an automotive kit in the cabinet for a gasket maker, and I traced out a new gasket based off of the plate and the holes. I marked the holes with a center punch. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but there's some dots here. And then just took one of the kids' punch, and I center it over that hole and punch it out, and it gives me the holes for the 1/4-inch bolts. Kind of worked out really nice. A little tip if that works for you. So we're going to go ahead and get started on welding up this weight. So as we mentioned earlier, this is the reason why we need to put counterweight on the end of this bar. When I do wind up welding this on here, it should draw this down to hopefully level. If not, I can trim it back a little bit or add a little more weight on. So we did have to make a couple cuts on that bar, shorten it up to bring the weight closer to the gearbox, but in the end we got it to hang just right. So one thing to keep in mind if you do this project at home is when you mount this hydraulic pump to the gearbox, if you hook everything up and you go to apply pressure to the lines to spin the auger, if you don't have that pump secure to the gearbox, the pump is just going to spin. So what I'm going to do with this one is take the pump here. I'm going to make a bracket to mount the pump to, probably out of 1/4 inch steel. From there, the pump will bolt to that. From there, I'm going to go from that bracket to the gearbox, and then that'll stop the pump from turning when you apply the hydraulic pressure. All right, so I have the plate that I made for mounting the pump to, and I also have this bushing here. I ordered this bushing. It's a 1-inch ID. The pump has a 1-inch outside diameter shaft. The gearbox has 1 1/4 inches. So I ordered this with a 1-inch ID, and then I had a machinist take the center out, I guess, on this end here to 1 1/4 inches. So this end will slide over the gearbox, attached there. We'll have the pump attaching on this end. Okay, so with that on, I'm going to wind up getting this centered so there's no play. And then once I get to that point, I made these 2 plates out of 3/8 inch steel, and they will wind up welding from the casting up to the plate that is mounted on the pump. And that'll keep the pump stationary to the gearbox. All right, as you can see, we got the post hole digger project finished. Other than attaching the hydraulic hoses yet, everything else is pretty much done. I'll probably paint it yet, of course, but all the welding, everything else is done. So we got it to balance nice with the weight on the opposite side there. The way the post hole digger was designed was to able to sway in 2 different directions, or pivot. So it pivots towards and away the skid steer, and then from side to side. That way when you're on uneven ground and you're coming up to where you want to drill a hole, the auger should, for the most part, self-center itself. Project was a lot of fun. It took most of the day, I would say, to build this, besides for some thought ahead of time into, which hydraulic motor you want to use. You're going to want a high torque, low speed hydraulic motor. You're going to have to take a look at your gearbox and see what the reduction is there to determine your overall speed at the auger. And just to think about what you're going to do for bracketry. I tried to save as much money as I could with this project. Overall, in the end, I probably have about $250 to $275 into this, including the pump, or the motor, the lines. A lot of the steel I had was left over from other projects, so I look at it as scrap. And a post hole digger like this for a skid steer can run you $2,400. So I'm really happy about the money I saved. It was a fun project to do, and I can't wait to get to digging some holes.